Welcome to r/Malicious Compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Today we have 3 good stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and here we go. And today's first story is, Coworker and I maliciously comply with the owner's demands. Owner loses thousands of dollars. I posted this story in r/pro revenge, but it got taken down since it wasn't taken as pro revenge, which I agree with. I'll include more details here, which will make it seem more like pro revenge, but they're brought about by malicious compliance. If you saw this already, hi again, I hope you enjoyed it. I also get the chance to fix some typos and elaborate in some parts, so this will end up being a more complete story. Side note to new readers, I'm going to college soon, or hopefully anyway, for computer science and electrical engineering. Also, prior to this story, I had already built a few PCs for myself and my friends. Not crucial info, but you'll see why I feel it should be mentioned. With that out of the way, let's go. None of the names used are real. A little over a year ago, I started my first job at a local restaurant. I was 16, making me at the time the youngest employee there. Nevertheless, I was determined to show that I was just as good as the older servers and bussers. Things started out great. I was learning a lot and quickly becoming a solid busser. To me, the job was perfect, as I felt I was good at it and working nights fit in with my schedule perfectly. Then about a week in, I walked in to see, but mostly hear, Jackie, the owner of the restaurant, screaming into her phone. I gather that she's on the phone with the internet provider and trying to get the internet back up before people sit for dinner. Dissatisfied with the customer service, hint foreshadowing hint hint, she hangs up and asks me to take a look since she knows I like computers. I head around the bar to the router and modem and see that neither has any lights on. Both appear to be completely off. A proverbial gong goes off in my head and I decide to check the outlet. Turns out the outlet had a built-in surge protector that tripped. I press in the reset button and the internet was up within 5 to 10 minutes. Little did I know, by pressing that button, I had just sold my soul as IT support to this rinky-dink restaurant. In fairness, it wasn't that bad most of the time. For about 5 months, it typically was just have you tried turning it on and off, and the occasional part replacement. All of the IT stuff I did was going unpaid, which I didn't really care about. I knew how to do it, Jackie knew that I could do it, so why wouldn't I do it? What I did care about, however, was how Jackie treated me when I tried to help her. Sometimes she would get oddly defensive and insist she knew how to do a thing, when 5 minutes before she had asked me how to do the thing. I also noticed that on weeks where she decided to have an argument, my scheduled hours for the following week went down. She would also withhold pay. I can't definitively say that there's a relation, but it happened multiple times, with the exact same excuses. Also during this time, my buddy Brett was hired. Brett is my age, a grade ahead though. We like similar stuff, and we knew each other from our school's robotics team. Around mid-August at the time, about 5 to 6 months in, Jackie has a brilliant plan to buy a brand new camera security system for the restaurant and get yours truly to install it all. When she told me, I was completely shocked. I mean, yeah, I had soldered and wired stuff before, but she's trusting a very expensive system to a kid with no real experience. When I brought up my concerns, Jackie brushed them aside with, just document everything you do so you can trace back any mistakes. Not fully convinced, but also not wanting to upset my boss, I naively accepted to install the system. I spent the next few days going over wiring schematics and drawing up a master that the whole system would be directly traced by. I may have been stupid enough to accept the job, but I was smart enough to do it right. I got Brett to help me with wiring and installation, and thanks to him, we were able to get the system completely running within a few hours, between the lunch and dinner rush. The place isn't that big, but there are 4 camera zones, some with multiple cameras to limit blind spots. Here's where the real trouble starts. When we finish the install and triple check all cams, I tell Jackie that we're done. I then start going through with Jackie to show her how everything works. She starts having trouble with playing back cams, since the system she bought was a relatively cheap one and had a poor interface. She started getting very annoyed, and here is the conversation that followed, paraphrasing a lot. Jackie, you definitely did something wrong. I can't work this thing. Me, there's nothing wrong. Look. I go through again how to play back video. Jackie, exactly. You've made it so I can't control it. Me, I didn't make the interface. That came with the system. Jackie, just fix it. How hard can it be? After this continued for a bit with both of us getting madder and madder, I realized she thought the way I wired the system affected how to use it. To you and I, that is stupid beyond words, but she was 100% serious. So I decided to go all in as well. Jackie, I'm going to personally go over everything so I can use it. Me, okay, go for it. I pull out all the wiring schematics that I kept in a folder in the office. Here you go. Jackie, what is all this? Me, it's the complete map of how the cams are wired. You said to document everything. I see her eyes go wide as she tries to take in everything on the sheets. To an untrained eye, complicated wiring schematics look like a maze with no exit. Me. Oh, and by the way, I quit. I turned around and walked out of the office, leaving her sputtering and screaming. I felt like I was on top of the world. And that's where the story should end, but we still have a bit more. Before I left the restaurant, I had a quick chat with Brett about what happened and warned him that she might try something with him since he helped me. To my surprise, I saw his eyes light up and he told me he'd give me a call in a bit. A little later that night, I get a call from Brett. Turns out I was right. Jackie tried to pressure him into rewiring the whole D thing by himself, saying she would fire him just like she had just fired me. Brett was able to convince her to just take the time to learn this setup. Still no idea how he managed that. Brett was always way better at negotiating than I am. He walked her through how to bring up the cameras and play back the video, and the camera he chose for the example was the camera in the office, right behind Jackie. Once the video was going and Jackie realized what was going on, she was just a passenger as our entire conversation was played out in front of her. When the playback ended, Brett turned to her and said, "Yeah, I quit too." The final nail in the coffin for Jackie. This was right before Labor Day, a huge time for restaurants, especially where we live. Jackie couldn't get replacement employees on time, and the restaurant tanked badly, missing out on easily thousands of dollars in profits. It managed to stay open until just a little while ago, which reminded me of this glorious memory. Brett and I are still close, and he's killing it at college, or at least he was. Thanks, Corona. I don't know where Jackie is now, but I'm assuming she went back to doing what she does best, being an effing dumb A. The second story is, if I annoy you so much, then you should find another shop to work in. Sounds great. So I've worked in a small barber shop for a year and 3 months now. When I was hired, I was not informed of the previous working conditions I was to be filling in for. My boss/shop owner, female 62, neglected to inform me that her previous staff had some issues. A schizophrenic, a gold-digging lesbian who called everyone baby, and a former mayor who was beat half to death for sleeping with another man's wife. She also had this horrendous tendency of complaining about everything at work. Some days it was her trans grandkid, other days it was how her boyfriend won't propose, but when he did, she just wasn't good at commitment. There were racist comments flung about, homophobic comments were frequent. You get the picture. Some days, however, she was extremely laid back and tolerable. I weathered through the rough patches of slow days and her bad attitudes, attempted to discuss her issues in healthy ways so she wouldn't share them with clients. I even opened and closed the shop and covered for her when she decided to take random vacations. Eventually, things began to settle, until about a year into working there. She became sporadic and impulsive, much more than usual to say the least. She would fly into bouts of anger and throw tantrums about clients for no reason. She decided to break it off with her boyfriend for not building her a lake house. She hired a new barber despite us not needing one. She began dodging haircuts she didn't like, and more. Yet the final straw that broke the horse's back was definitely when she tried to sell the shop out from under us without telling us. The issue here is that she was telling clients but not her employees. The new barber was freaking out. Clients had begun leaving. This was an issue I couldn't overlook. So as shop manager, I took it upon myself to finally confront her when we were alone in the shop. I asked what her plans were and that we just needed to know for communication's sake, at least so we could plan appropriately. With which I was only told, "Don't worry, I have a plan. You guys can still work here." That wasn't an answer for me though, so I responded with, "All right, as long as you have a plan and can communicate with us, then I'm fine with that." Later that night, she texted me the following: "We will no longer be discussing my business. If I mention it to my customers, that's my business. When it has to do with you, I will let you know in plenty of time. Please keep your opinions to yourself. I'm not mad. This is just simply my business, and I would appreciate it if it were kept that way. If you don't like the way I run my business, and if I get on your nerves so bad, you should not be working here. From this day forward, I will do things my way, without any input. Thanks." So in short, I told her thanks for an answer, and I'll see her in the morning. The next morning, I opened the shop as usual, and didn't say a single thing to her for the entire day. Halfway through, the new girl came up and told me that my boss said I had been kissing her A all morning, and I was giving her the silent treatment. My boss was acting shady because she knew I was up to something. So she left early that day in order to prevent a confrontation. I helped the new girl to finish the day out. Then I packed all my stuff in my car and left her a letter of resignation. I then texted her to say, "I've left my letter of resignation on your register. I appreciate the opportunity to work and gain clients. From now on, I'll be doing things my way without any input. Good luck in whatever you do, and please do not contact me." Since then, I've been offered jobs by 3 different shops, and have had clients from her shop contact me, saying my boss didn't understand why I left, and has shut the shop down randomly. The new girl said my boss was in total shock over me leaving. And the last story is, "You want me to go to work on that other project immediately?" Sure thing, boss. This is gonna be a short one because I'm horrible at writing long things. Okay, this got longer than I expected. So I'm a software developer at a large, 1,500-ish employees company. My official position is a software developer, but since I've got quite a bit of experience and a somewhat non-standard skill set for this position, I've worked as a Linux admin and a DevOps engineer for around 2 years. I often get asked to do other things than just write code. I absolutely don't have a problem with that, and even quite enjoy doing other things from time to time to break the monotony. Or rather, I did, until one of the high-up managers noticed my particular skill set and started asking me to help out on other projects that were short on people. At first, I didn't really mind, but eventually it evolved into a situation where I would be reassigned to a different project every single week. A project change for me would mean downloading all their code, setting up the whole build and development environment, getting familiar with said project, and then finally being able to do some work. This would usually take at least a day. I've tried talking to many different managers to try and do something about this, because it was starting to affect my performance reviews to no avail. Some of them would tell me they will look into it, others wouldn't even bother to reply to my emails. And that's where I got really fed up. Now, our project teams usually sit together. We have multiple large open space offices, and a few smaller ones with just a few people. I'm one of the lucky ones who gets to sit in one of the small ones, and I usually wouldn't physically move for these team changes, because then I would be moving every single week. On a Monday morning, as usual, I got an email basically saying this: "You're needed on Project XYZ immediately. Go over there to help as soon as you can." The immediately and go over there parts are where they made a fatal mistake. I've always been one to not take SH from anyone, and malicious compliance is my default, so I immediately took the hint and did exactly what I've been asked to do. I stopped working on my current project immediately. This will be very relevant later. And even though I usually wouldn't have done this, I've decided to physically move to the team I've been reassigned to. So for the rest of the day, I've made a big spectacle of trying to move my entire workspace closer to that new project team, making sure to only carry one thing at a time, as not to injure myself, to an office on a different floor and other side of the building. The next morning, I just started working on the new project like nothing happened. Well, fast forward 3 weeks. The project I've been taken off has had huge delays and missed multiple client deadlines because of that thing I haven't been allowed to finish. In this industry, missing a client means huge fines from both the client and sometimes also relevant government regulators. Managers started to reply to my emails and try to be much more careful with how they word their requests. I haven't been asked to switch projects for 3 weeks now. I'm not worried about getting fired. I've been looking for something new for quite a while now. I hope you enjoyed those stories, and if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe.